Hey, tribe, Sally here. Hope you're having an amazing and fascinating day. I know I am. So, welcome back to my next video. And this is another one of what I'm calling framework videos. And it kind of happened spontaneously while I was driving through North Dakota. But there's a couple of subjects in here that I think might resonate for you, and I'm really curious if that turns out to be true. Hope you enjoyed the video. I just want to hop in, give you a little context from the beginning because this is going to be out of sequence. This just happened in real time as of August 6th of 2026, and we're still looking at travel videos from May of 2026. So don't be confused about timing. In travel videos, we're really still doing Route 66, but in real time, we're actually in North Dakota at the moment. Hope you enjoy this video. Thank you so much for being here, and let's roll the intro and get right into it.
Wake up with the sun in our eyes. Sally forth, no need for goodbyes. Journey calls, let's roll the dice. Every mile a new surprise.
So what we've got going on today, we're heading into Williston, North Dakota, and we're going to the Cummins dealer there, where we are going to get the generator repaired and serviced. It's going to be an expensive repair and service, I'm sure. My guess is it's going to be about $700. We'll find out. Oh, this is fun. We got a steep downgrade to a T intersection. Let's see how steep this is and how much I want to slow down before I start down. Well, not terrible, but still. So we're about 35 miles away from our destination, which Google says is going to take us 47 minutes, which means really closer to an hour. Look at the pretty cows. And everything's rattling. And I'm going to let this guy get past me because I know he's going to want to go faster than I am. And we'll go slow and let his dust trail get ahead of me too. Oh yeah, awesome. Okay, this is going to be super slow. This is nasty washboard. After I get over on this side, is it better? Not really. Okay, so we're just going to be going really slow. I'll be interested in seeing if the washboard actually shows up in the camera or not. I mean, I can see it pretty clearly, but I'm not sure you can. Anyway, they're going to put in, oops. They're going to put in a new circuit breaker, which should solve the problem of not transferring power to the coach. And we're going to get a full service done, air filter, oil change, O-rings, whatever else goes in that. Yeah. What is rattling up there? Good grief. Well, this could take a little while. I'm pretty sure the generator has never been completely serviced. I've done one oil change on it since I had it. And I think I did that at about, I want to say about 130 hours or something like that. And we got 260 hours on it now. I think I'm about to hit pavement, I hope. Because it's taken me almost 20 minutes to cover less than 3 miles, or about 3 miles. And I want to know why it is that it seems like the middle of summer I got to do repairs that I wasn't planning on. I try and plan for maintenance and upkeep during the winter. Maybe it's just the hard duty of day after day driving and the accumulation of miles, because, you know, in the winter I put on comparatively very few miles. And because I can't help geeking out over numbers, I wanted to look at this from the perspective of a full year of travel. So starting from April of 2025 through April of 2026, I actually covered almost 13,000 miles. But in the 5-month period of winter season, starting in November through April, only 2,000 miles during that entire time. So as you can see, I drive a whole lot less in the wintertime than I do in the summertime. So summertime duty is much harder duty because of the amount of time that I spend moving. Now, back to our broadcast. I want to share these thoughts right now because it took up a significant portion of my time this morning. And I think it's an aspect of being a YouTube creator that viewers never really think about. And it's not this specific thing itself that makes this interesting to me to share to you, but it's the application across so many different things, whether it's route planning or meal planning or any number of other things, how it can become a huge time suck and potentially analysis paralysis in order to determine that you're making the optimum decision. So here's the deal from my perspective. As a YouTube creator, I video a lot, as you well know. And I do it using different cameras, obviously on different days. And so I've got to collect all that footage together to be able to edit it and then create a video for you to see. And the way that process works for me, beautiful sunflowers over there to the left. I should stay on my side of the road. The way that this works for me is I take each camera and I download the footage for a day into a folder on a portable solid-state hard drive. Now, originally when I first started YouTubing, I was using conventional external hard drives. 5 terabyte drives cost about $100. I think they still do, actually. And I had 2 that were Seagate drives and 5 that were Western Digital drives. And of the 5 Western Digital drives, 3 failed. And I lost all that footage. So out of a total of 8 drives, I collect all of my footage and store the footage for a day in a folder on a portable drive, because I discovered that using portable solid-state drive, because I discovered that the conventional non-solid-state drives were not reliable and I didn't want to keep losing footage. So the solid-state drives, when I first started getting them, I think I paid as little as $250 for one for a 4 terabyte drive, not 5. So a little more than twice as expensive as the conventional hard drives, which seemed like a pretty good trade-off to me. Well, the last one I bought was on sale for $370. Nope, $385. That was the sale price. And when I looked this morning, because I'm going to need another one before too long, the current price for that drive is $560. I can't afford that. That's just way too much money. And I know a lot of people don't save their footage, but I really want to. And so I'm not willing to just overwrite footage that's already been turned into a video. I know a lot of people do it. I'm not one of them. So I started searching for a different solution. And so I went to ChatGPT And I started with, you know, I'm looking for video storage, which are the words that I used, and ultimately to be able to transfer and then eliminate the existing non-solid state drives. And I envision using one of the solid state drives as the current, the portable solid state drives, as the current operating drive. That's the one that I'm transferring to and editing from. And then whatever the new system is, I'll transfer from that into the long-term storage location. And I won't bore you with all the details, because there were a lot. And it took quite a long time. And a lot of what JBOD was telling me made a lot of sense. You know, do I want a RAID system? Do I want an NAS system? And finally I realized that we had gone far afield from what it was that I had asked for. And that's what I told him. I said, you know, I think you're overcomplicating what I've asked for. I want the simplest, most robust, and least expensive method to be able to reliably save my video files. That simplified things a bit. I still have to look at the last responses. I had to stop and make breakfast so I could get out of there on time. So I gotta look at the last response, because my last question was, give me your top 3 recommendations for exactly what it is that I need to buy and how I will assemble these parts, as well as sources from which to buy them. So basically what I'm planning to do, I learned a new word today, and it's JBOD, JBOD. It's an acronym, not a word. Because I was familiar with RAID and I was familiar with NAS, but JBOD I'd never heard of. And apparently JBOD stands for just a bunch of disks, which is exactly what I want. So I think ultimately what I'm going to end up doing is buying an enclosure which incorporates a fan and a power supply and allows me to stack multiple internal SSD drives, which are much less expensive than ruggedized external SSD drives. And then I can just swap those out. As they get full, I can put in a new one, which will be a whole lot less expensive than buying a whole new ruggedized SSD every single time I need one, which is about twice a year. So, you know, at this rate, if I had to buy one at $570, I think it was $560, $570, whatever that was, I mean, that's $1,100 for a year's worth of storage. It's a lot of money that I don't really want to spend. So that's what we know so far. It'll still take me many hours to try and get that completely figured out. So what's my point for you? My point for you is that make sure that you're asking the right questions to get the answers that you're looking for, rather than getting drug into some whole different potential train of thought that is not what you were looking for. Now, that's not to say that that's not useful sometimes. Sometimes it opens you up to thinking about things differently, and I really appreciate that. And in fact, that's why the first 15 or 20 minutes that we spent jumping down those rabbit holes and getting lost, I was okay with it, because I started my prompt with, I want to think outside the box. Here's what I've been doing. What are the other possibilities that will accomplish what it is that I want to accomplish? And so, you know, it gave me a lot of possibilities. Gave me some other things to think about and look at differently. But once we had narrowed down what really was going to be most important to me, then I wanted to get to the bottom of it quickly. And so, do I think AI is worth using? Yes, I absolutely do. I use AI for a lot of things. Do I think it is completely trustworthy? I absolutely do not. And in fact, one of the things that I use it for daily is I have a thread each month where I report certain things like my weight every day and what I'm eating, because I want to keep track of my macros, because my goal is to consume at least 100 grams of protein and at least 25, hopefully 30 grams of fiber every day. And if I'm not actually keeping track of what I'm eating, then I don't have any idea if I'm really meeting that goal or not, other than how I feel. And how I feel takes a while to show up. As in, you know, I got to miss those goals some days in a row before I start to feel the effects of it. So for me, I prefer to just keep track of what my macros are every day, as well as my weight. My weight is not something, I don't take my weight every day so it's something I can beat myself up over. I take my weight every day looking for trends and making sure that I'm staying on track. Unless I have done something phenomenally different, I don't expect my weight to change by more than about half a pound a day. And if it's more than that, I want to think about what I've done differently and what I need to do differently to stay on track. And as a result of all of these things, I've been doing this since the very end of last year. And so at this point, I'm down almost 20 pounds and feeling much better. A lot more energy, all of those things, despite the tick-borne illness, which basically knocked me down for about a month. So back to the thinking process, because that's what we were really talking about, right? Well, with the thinking process, you've heard me say it often, keep an open mind. Be open to other possibilities. But also be aware of when it's time to move on. Don't fall into the habit of, oh, I'm going to keep looking at this and keep looking at this and keep looking at this and branching out beyond where it's practical or appropriate for whatever the subject is, because it's going to be different for every single subject, obviously. Know when to rein it back in. Look at the pretty ribbon of black road winding around the corner up there ahead of us. Very pretty. Nothing like a freshly oiled road, as long as you're not on a motorcycle and kicking it up all over your pretty plastic paint. I'm just kicking it all up underneath of Henry's undercarriage. Oh well. So one of the things that I want to look into is, in an RV, is there maintenance that's required to make sure that the house stays attached to the chassis? Like, are there bolts that need to be checked on some periodic basis, and what is that? And what torque specification should they be, if indeed that's true, and I imagine that it is. I don't think that the house is just welded to the chassis, but I don't know. So I need to check that out as well, because, you know, that could be a thing that needs doing too. And I finally started a new note on my phone and MacBook yesterday, where I'm keeping track of all of the things that I'm planning to do for renovation, so that I can kind of flesh out the considerations related to each of those things. Oh, I guess Lewis and Clark State Park is in the middle between whatever this road is and US 2 that we were on, out to the east of us. I guess that would be whatever direction that is to our left, because we saw signs from it when we were going into Coteray as well. 16 miles to Williston, 20 miles to our destination. And I guess while I'm spending so much time chatting about things today, I want to share with you a little bit about my stress level, because I actually did get pretty stressed between yesterday and this morning. I woke up stressed this morning, as a matter of fact, over this generator repair. So I called the generator shop on Monday, and I explained that I needed the circuit breaker, and I explained that I wanted to get a service done if that was possible. But my primary need is the circuit breaker, because it's not, the generator is not doing me any good without the circuit breaker. And she was going to call me back on Tuesday and verify that they were able to get the circuit breaker. Well, she didn't call me back. So I called yesterday and I said, hey, I just want to check and make sure you were able to get the circuit breaker and everything. Oh yeah, no, we have to wait until you get here so we know exactly which one to order because there's 2 different possibilities. I said, yeah, that's not really going to work unless you can get it immediately because I can't just hang around there for days. And I made it really clear that that was my primary thing. So I went out and opened up the compartment to see if I could find any marking on the circuit breaker, and it's mounted on the side of the generator internally, so you really can't see anything. And then she said, well, can you get a picture of the label? I said, yeah, I think I can do that. That was difficult because the label is located on the front of the generator, but the label is between the generator and the sidewall of the RV, which is only like 1.5 inches. That's all the space. So I'm trying to get my phone in there while I'm on the phone with this woman. Trying to get my phone in there and take a picture. It took me about 3 tries, but I finally got it. And then I tried texting it to her 2 different times, and that didn't go through. And then I tried emailing it to her. That didn't go through either. I have no idea why. Except that I bet that their internal, the Cummins.com email address, and I wonder if they don't allow attachments on incoming unknown email addresses, which would make sense. Because I saw the projection notice this morning when I looked at my email. So finally I said, well, can I just read you the numbers for whatever you need off of the label? And as it turns out, the only thing they needed to know was what the amperage rating was, which is 33.3. So that she said, okay, well, now we got what we need. Let me look into this, and then I'll call you back later and let you know we should be able to get it tomorrow. And should be able to do this by tomorrow afternoon. Okay, fine. Didn't hear anything from her for the rest of yesterday afternoon. And I was on the phone with somebody else until after 5 o'clock yesterday. And in fact, that was one of my viewers that was looking for some real estate broker recommendation. So we had quite an interesting conversation about that and a number of other things. Thank you, Susan. Anyway, I couldn't call him back yesterday. So I got up this morning and waited until about 8:30 and then called him this morning. And she had not actually verified anything at this point and finally confirmed that yes, the warehouse had ordered it, and yes, FedEx showed it was scheduled for delivery today. So I said I would get there between 1 and 1:30 if that was okay. But why was that such a load of stress on me, you may wonder? Because normally I don't have a schedule. Well, before I secured this schedule, I had scheduled an RV overnight stop, and I called him up and I said, hey, I have been trying desperately to get a bunch of stuff shipped, and I've had a lot of difficulty being able to do that because it's coming FedEx, UPS, and USPS, and I'm having trouble being able to know how things are going to be shipped so I can figure out where I can have them shipped to. Would it be okay if I had a bunch of stuff shipped to you? And it turned out to be even more than I thought it was going to be. But they graciously said, yes, that would be fine. So yay for that. So I did all of my shopping online. And then once I had completed that and had shipping dates, then I went back and I said this when I was talking to the RV Overnights guy. I said, so once I know what that is, then I'll make my reservation and come in, pick everything up at one time, spend the night, get out of your hair. As it turns out now, I'm going to be staying for 2 nights because one package, which is going to be a brand new air fryer, and I'm really excited about that, isn't going to arrive until Monday. Almost everything else is coming today. A few things are coming tomorrow. And I said I'd show up on Saturday, and now I'm going to stay Saturday and Sunday, and then on Monday after my air fryer shows up. So I had all of those things in place, and I mean, I'm sure it's probably not too big a deal for the business of RV Overnights, but If they hadn't been able to get the circuit breaker and get me out of the Cummins dealer today, I wouldn't be able to get to that location by Saturday, which means I'd have to push it back further. And that messes with their scheduling, and I think it's disrespectful, and I don't want to be disrespectful to another business. So it had me a little stressed out. And I think I might just pull this whole section of driving video and publish it by itself in real time, because these are two subjects that are interwoven together, and I think it's a part of full-time RV life that a lot of people aren't aware of until they have to live it. And it's much more true for people like me who are traveling versus people who are more stationary. And for people that are in RV parks, a lot of times you can have packages sent to an RV park timed to arrive on the day of your arrival, or, you know, if you're only there one night. And I've done that on rare occasion. I don't like to do it. It's a pain in the neck to me. But that is one option. And since I so rarely want to pay to park in a place that would allow me to do that, it would have to be fairly important. Oh, and I guess let me wrap up the other part of my thought process this morning before I actually got to talk to the Cummins dealer in Williston. Because what I was thinking to myself was, all right, so what if I just have to skip getting the generator fixed and go on with the rest of my travel? Well, today's going to be over 90 degrees, which means I really want to be able to run the air conditioner at least for a few hours. Probably this evening just before bed to make sure it's cooled down enough inside. If it hasn't cooled off enough before I'm ready to go to bed. And the rest of the time it should be mostly okay, but my problem has been not just the temperature, but because of all of the wildfire smoke, which has been highly prevalent over the last week or so, I'm pulling a lot of wattage just to keep my refrigerator running on electric. And with the wildfire smoke, I'm not getting anywhere near the amount of solar that I typically do. I'm generating more like wintertime solar quantity. And so that's making it difficult. And again, if the generator's working, that's just fine. I'll run the generator for an hour or two, get the batteries charged back up. Bob's your uncle. And so getting the generator fixed has become a pretty high priority to me, as I've realized, having spent almost all of July and much of August to date, feeling like I have to be plugged in to make sure I've got enough power. And that's driving my travel in ways that I don't love, because almost always I have to have a reservation. And at the very least, I have to know what my options are in terms of where I can find a place to plug in that I think is an acceptable price. Part of the reason I came to the conclusion that this is what I'm going to do for as much as I need to do it this summer until I get everything fixed is, if I spend an average of $30 a night and I have to plug in every night, $30, 30 nights, that's $900. A lot more money than I really want to spend, but is it going to break me? No, it's not. I can afford to do it if I have to. I would just prefer not to. And I'll say this now in case I forget to check back in with you once the generator work is done and I get out of the Cummins dealer. But as always, thank you so much for coming along. I hope you found something interesting here. And if you did, I'd really appreciate it if you leave a comment. Let me know what really resonated for you. Give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. If you think you are, double check to make sure, because YouTube does spontaneously unsubscribe people. Seems to run in cycles, actually, when they choose to do that. They probably have an algorithm for that as well. And if you're doing this on mobile, consider giving me a hype so that more people get to see this video.
Wake up with the sun in our eyes. Sally forth, no need for goodbyes.